In today's Expat Story series, we're talking to Heather Wild, a former sex worker who is now actually a digital nomad in Mexico. Hi, welcome to Entrepreneur Expat. I'm Amanda Abella. I am one half of the Entrepreneur Expat duo. And on this channel, we interview expats, we talk about making money online, we talk about living in other countries, moving overseas, and doing business globally. So if that is something that you're interested in, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single video on this channel. And as always, we have a bunch of free gifts and goodies for you, which you can find in the description below. You can check out our most popular free download, which is our Make Money From Anywhere guide below. And in that guide, we talk about the 5 skills that you need to develop in order to make money from anywhere in the world. And it's a really good companion guide to a lot of what Heather and I are going to be talking about in this interview today. So let's get into this interview. It's so fascinating because, as I mentioned, Heather is a former sex worker turned online sales trainer and now is a digital nomad in Mexico. So we talk about the trajectory of that journey, and we got into some really interesting conversations about what Heather learned from wealthy people in her former line of work. We also talk a lot about how she got the intuitive hit to move to Mexico pretty much out of the blue earlier this year, and how she was trying to figure out why her intuition had pushed her in that direction, and she shares the answer that she got. And she also shares why she is not going to be going back to the United States. We talk a lot about her transition from having done sex work to then working as a chauffeur and working in real estate and all the weird situations she got herself into in more traditional jobs. And then we talk about how she transitioned from those more traditional jobs into now being an online sales trainer, which there are not very many female online sales trainers, speaking as one of them. And there certainly aren't that many that are really good. So I'm excited to bring this chat with you with Heather, because number one, it's a bit of a rare find to find someone as well skilled in sales and who knows how to do it properly like Heather does. But number two, because you're about to hear 2 female sales trainers have an interesting conversation about how to get over the fear of sales, why you need to learn sales if you want to be a digital nomad and live in other countries, how to avoid manipulating people and being that guy. And we also talk about some of the things to look out for in this whole online business coaching industry. We talk about red flags and manipulative tactics so you don't fall for them. And then finally, we go into some current events that people are experiencing at their remote jobs that are, quite frankly, kind of scary, very Orwellian, and that we believe are basically clear-cut signs that people need to start figuring out how to do their own thing so they can be autonomous. So without further ado, let's get into the interview. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Expat Stories on Entrepreneur Expat. I am here with a new friend, a new business friend, a new expat friend that we met online. It's actually kind of a cool story how we met. Heather Wild, who just literally packed up her shit and moved to Mexico in June and decided she wasn't going back to the United States. So thank you so much for being here, Heather.
Hey, Amanda. Good to have you. Good to see you. Thanks for having me. Words are hard.
It's been one of those days. So the way that we met is actually really interesting, and it kind of goes into why Entrepreneur Expat started to begin with. Because basically the way that we met is because I had a business and still have a business where I was teaching marketing and sales for a long time. I have a lot of Facebook friends, a lot of clients on Facebook, a lot of colleagues on Facebook. And apparently after I made the move to Mexico, word started spreading fast and people started asking me a ton of questions. And then I started getting tagged in a bunch of posts of people who were looking to move to Mexico. You were one of the ones who was looking for help, and then a mutual connection tagged me, and then we started chatting in the DMs, and your friends had concerns about safety and all that stuff. I was like, as long as you don't do something stupid, you'll be fine. And then I remember what you told me, which is like, oh, no problem. Like, I've been through way worse stuff in downtown Atlanta. and stuff like that. And then we just kind of hit it off and we started talking business and expat stuff and entrepreneurship. And now you might actually be staying at our house in December in Guadalajara. So these friendships can happen very quickly because you make life altering decisions, in our case 2 life altering decisions, and we'll talk about both of them and how you made them, which was number 1, starting a business, and then number 2, packing up your shit and going to another country.
Yeah. Yeah, they're I don't know. It's funny, like I was doing some mindset work the other day and I have this weird or had this weird thing where I was like, people like me don't get to live epic lives. And then I started listing all these like crazy things that I've done in my life, and I was like, oh yeah, that's bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, there's actually a really cool tool. We just taught this to our Effortless Revenue Mastermind clients during our Target Tuesday sales training call that we do every week.
Mhm.
And it's from a guy named David Bayer, and it's called the Decision Matrix. And it's basically literally what you just did, which is like you identify the limiting belief, you change the belief, and then you find evidence as to why the new belief is true, which ergo means the original belief is bullshit.
Yes.
I think
Very
everybody needs to learn how to do that.
100%. Because this is a whole tangent we could go down, but not today. So much of what people teach for mindset is bullshit and not effective. But that is
Yeah, and the
actually
biggest thing that stops people from building businesses, moving to Mexico, having the relationships that they want, literally getting anything they want in life, is their own brain.
yeah.
100%.
Agree.
So let's get into you, because I know you've done a lot of mindset work. You have also mentioned you're a very intuitive person. How did you make the decision to just pack up your stuff and move to Mexico? Because from my understanding, it was pretty random.
It really was. So I do believe in intuition. I've gone through phases in my life where I live like very intuitively, but overall, like I'm a pretty rational, logical person. Probably could stand to, look at the intuition more. But I was living in North Georgia and I decided that I was done with living in my small town and I was going to move to Asheville, North Carolina. So I booked an Airbnb for a month. And as soon as I booked that Airbnb for a month, thinking I was going to find an apartment during that time, my intuition started screaming at me, like, you need to go to Mexico. And I was like, why? Like, I had never really, like, one other time my mind had said go to Mexico, but I was like, mm. So, but it would not, like, it wasn't even like an intuitive nudge. It was more like I was being pushed. And there
Yeah.
wasn't like a reason why. It was just like, you need to go. So I was like, okay. I'll go for a couple of weeks and I'll see how I like it. And then, we'll go from there. And after 3 days, like, and I don't know anybody here, I don't speak the language. I probably knew like maybe 50 words of Spanish when I
You and
came
I
here.
have maybe sent 3 DM messages to each other. So you didn't really know me either.
No, I didn't know anybody here except for like some people online that were very kind and were, sharing information. And that certainly made it easier. But after 3 days here, like the food is so much better. Like it's doesn't have all the bullshit that the US has. It's fresher. It's the culture's very nice. And I didn't really I'm still figuring out why my intuition was so adamant about me coming. But I know that one thing, as soon as the political stuff started heating up in the US, I was like, because election years make me very nervous. Like they just drive me freaking nuts. And I was like, oh, if nothing else, I'm here and I don't have to hear so much about Trump or Taylor Swift or Trump bitching about Taylor Swift. But yeah, I came down for 2 weeks and then I went home and I sold my car and I came back and I've been here for 4 months total. And I'm going to go back to the US in about a month and I'm going to clean out my storage and come back here.
So I love this story because I always tell people the ones who make it are the ones who just make decisions really quickly and move. And that is a trait of a successful person and a person who gets what they want in life. Usually, people who are overly skeptical or hemming and hawing or need to have all the I's dotted and T's crossed, like they don't really get what they want most of the time. Usually, it's the ones who really trust themselves to make decisions. And in your case, you got the intuitive hit, you trust yourself, you went. And we'll talk about money in a second because I already know everybody's already asking, well, how do you make money? I already know. But you trusted yourself, and then literally like a few weeks later things just started really blowing up in the United States, I mean, it was already crazy and it's been crazy for a while, but then it really
Years.
started blowing up. And I know we're all in the same agreement here. And it seems you and I had this conversation. It seems that, in the United States, when you see people talking about politics, it's like you're either conservative or you're liberal, you're red or you're blue, and it's like one extreme or the other. And this is my team. We treat it like it's fucking football, right? American football. But then all the expats, and I noticed this on my Facebook, all the Americans who were living overseas all had come to the same conclusion, which is like, I'm not on either of these teams. They're both trash. The whole system is broken, and this is insane.
Yes. Yes. And I felt that way for years. And I feel like the pressure has just come up more and more. And I really, I, I think that it's very unfortunately likely that someone is going to try to start a civil war.
Yeah,
I
I
hope
mean,
I'm
some
wrong.
people think it's already started. It's a civil war in our minds.
Well, I've been saying for years that the US it's in an ideological civil war.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, but I think that with this election coming up, I don't know how far the attempt will go, but I think it's highly likely that it will be attempted.
Yeah,
It's
Janet
just
Jackson. Yeah, Janet Jackson got in some hot water recently for something that she said about Kamala that she'd read in a book because I guess they were trying to like the reporter was like trying to bait her, and
mm,
basically what Janet Jackson said was like, "It's gonna be mayhem either way. Why are you asking me this stuff?"
yes.
And she got in some hot water for that.
Well, she's a black woman, and it's a black woman running, and you know, I don't know a lot about Kamala. Honestly, and I'm not really excited about her. I'm definitely not excited about Trump, but I think the US is kind of screwed either way.
Yep.
I think that if Trump doesn't win, he is going to encourage his really crazy followers to attempt a coup, since he did that already.
Right. And then some people on the opposite end are like the Democrats already did a coup, and that's how Kamala got there.
Right. And I
Yeah. So it's like either way. I mean, it's
either
not looking
way,
good.
right. Either way, it's messy as fuck. And I wish I had the answers and I wish I could wave a magic wand and fix the situation. Not even fix it so that it totally makes sense to me, but just fix it so the American people are not at war with each other.
Yeah.
But I have no idea how to fix it. I am a lover, not a fighter. I can't change shit. I've tried to have conversations with people on both quote unquote sides. I'm like, we're all freaking Americans. Where did this side shit come from? And people are so stirred up and in their emotions, which that's part of the plan. It's part of the, media is to get people in their emotions. And people have just abandoned all discernment and rational thought. And most people, you cannot have a rational discussion, without them trying to talk down on you,
Yeah.
talk down at you.
We see it in the comments all the time. The United States and Canada are like very particularly like that from what we've seen in the comments, but it kind of happens in every country. Is what
Oh,
we're
I'm sure.
noticing. Yeah, it happens in every country, but yes, the United States in particular is going through a very unique moment right now where that is happening. But it seems that the decision you made was just to get the hell out. And that was the best decision you could make. And it sounds like you and Justin were in alignment. I mean, he'd booked it years ago. He'd been like back and forth, but
Mm,
he's the one who encouraged me. He's like, and this was over a year ago. And he's like, look, I have a feeling this is not going to be good.
mhm.
I think we needed to just start making moves to start doing this global citizen lifestyle while we can.
Right.
And he was right.
Yeah, sounds like he's got some good intuition.
He
I,
does.
I've been I've been thinking it for years, but I had only no. I mean, this is interesting. The first time I left the country to go to Jamaica when I was in my early 20s. I'm almost 50. The next time I left the country was just a couple years ago. I went down to Costa Rica for a couple weeks. I've barely been an international traveler. I've never lived internationally, but I have been thinking for years. I was like, I feel like I'm that frog in the boiling water, and I'm just like, am I being paranoid or is shit really fucked up?
No,
And
that's literally the same analogy. When I went back to the US for the first time after having spent an extensive amount of time in Mexico, that's literally what I told my mother. I was like, oh my God, this culture or country or whatever you want to call it, this is like a frog in boiling water.
yeah,
It was the first thing I noticed.
yeah. Yeah, I only went back for like 4 days, and the only thing I really noticed was that my body is acclimated to the temperature here to the point that 80 degrees feels cool to me now. And and that the food in the US sucks. Like I went to all of my favorite restaurants and only one of them still tasted good to me. I was like, God, what are we doing to the food?
Yeah, no, that's also comes at every single person that I've interviewed on this expat stories, and they've been in all kinds of different countries. That's the first thing they say, that when they go back to the United States, one of the first things they notice is that the food either tastes like nothing or it tastes like chemicals.
I've heard that for years, and I've wanted to go. I want to have an off grid home, like not off grid, like removed from all communications, but like I want to have a home that produces its own power, its own food, its own water. And one of the reasons is because I've known, that the food was messed up, and I've heard that, but until I got down here, I didn't really understand what that meant. And I mean, literally after 3 days, I was like, I don't want to eat in the US anymore. This is scary. Like the food down here tastes better than the organic stuff that I would buy in the States.
Yes, it does. 100%. And when we've had friends stay with us, they've said like that's one of the first things they notice is how good the food is in Mexico and how it tastes like real food. And they're like, "Oh my god, flavor!" It's like, or like they don't have to eat as much in order to feel satisfied.
Oh my God. Yeah. And I think that I've heard that a lot of people from the US, when they travel internationally, if they do it, for extended period of time, they lose weight. I've lost 20 pounds being here. And I walk a lot more because I don't have a car, but that's not the whole deal. Like, I don't feel like I need dessert because the food actually tastes good. The texture is good. The flavor is good. It's fresh. Like, oh, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about how you make money, because the fear number one that everybody has on our YouTube channel is, how am I going to make money while I'm either moving to another country or traveling full time? Or we've even had guests who like live on sailboats full time. Yeah, we've had a wide array of different
Nice.
kinds of digital nomadism that we've interviewed. So, how do you make money? I already know they're all wondering.
Yeah. So I'm a sales coach or sales strategist consultant. People are like really hating on the word coach now, and I get why. Um, but I teach high integrity, high conversion sales, mostly to coaches, consultants, healers, some types of service providers. And I'm really passionate about it because I know how much that personal growth and high integrity coaches, how much of an impact they've made on my life.
So, for people who may not know what that is, right? Because we drop sales and marketing on this channel all the time. Like, you guys want to make money literally doing anything? Sales and marketing are requirements,
Yes.
period, in order for you to make money. But a lot of people hear sales and they're like, ew, gross. I don't want to do that. That's so gross. So, like, how would you get people like over that in order to understand what sales really is? Because I've been in sales 16 years. So I've been through it all, girl. B2B, cold calling, fundraising, all of it. I've done it all. The online thing, now I've really gotten into like the digital marketing, and YouTube's generating leads for us every day, so I don't have to be as proactive as I used to be. But I hear you saying that, and I get it. I'm like, yes,
Right.
100%, I get it. But for an audience who might be newer to sales or marketing, and they know that they have to learn this in order to make money online and be able to live from anywhere in the world, and they're feeling very apprehensive, what would you tell them?
So it's just first off funny, like your background is very like above board business and corporate and stuff. My first sales training actually came as a sex worker.
Oldest
So
sales job in the world, girl.
oldest profession in the world for a reason. But yeah, so I actually totally identify with the people who are like, oh my God, sales is gross. And I really didn't want to sell either. I didn't want to market. I didn't want to sell. I just wanted to help people. I quickly figured out that you can't just put a couple of posts on Facebook and get clients. So I started investing in a variety of different mentors to learn how to sell and market. And the way that most people teach sales and marketing made my skin crawl.
Yeah, it's horrendous. Yeah.
Yeah. And, just like outright lies, skewing, high pressure, manipulation, shaming people, guilting people, all of that stuff. And I was like, I wouldn't sell a car like this.
Yeah, when I train our clients, I'm like, look, most sales training out here teaches you to be like borderline abusive to buyers.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And what I teach people is like how somebody sells is how they're going to be as a coach, mentor, healer, whatever. And so if somebody's abusive on a sales call, do not work with them because they're going to be a very abusive, mentor, whatever.
So
But
my experience is most people don't know that they're being manipulated or abused, and I'm like, well, that's exactly why you should learn sales and learn how to do it well, so that you know when you're being manipulated.
yes, and
That's been
and
one of
I
like the sidebar benefits of learning sales and going so deep, because I'm like you, I got my hands on every sales training I could get my hands on. I was in the field, I did it in different jobs, and I realized, and this was something that came later, I have a very good bullshit detector. But it's because I know when someone's trying to manipulate me, and then I lean it back to, oh, it's because I understand the difference between influence and manipulation. The two are not the same.
they're not. There's a line. So with me, I I just in the last couple of years got diagnosed with CPTSD, so complex PTSD. And I think that a lot of people in the online world have CPTSD or PTSD or other like neurodivergence. And it turns out that those abusive, manipulative sales techniques work especially well on people that have unhealed trauma
Yeah.
or, have people pleasing or whatever. And so my bullshit detector would go off, but then I would be like, well, I don't know, maybe I'm just being paranoid. Again, almost like, the thing with like living in the US, it was like maybe I'm just being paranoid. But now that I understand I have CPTSD and I'm doing all this stuff to heal, now I'm like, no, I don't think you're being paranoid. Like I'm learning to trust myself.
Yeah.
But I love the coaching industry, but there's problems. And I've actually written and published 2 books about it. And the last one was What Every Entrepreneur Wishes They'd Known Before Hiring a Business Coach. And it was like a 7-step process of like how to recognize good mentors from bad based on,
Yes.
manipulation in marketing,
Yes.
how to go through a process of hiring someone so that you're more likely to find somebody who can actually help you. Because somebody can be a great coach, but if they're not the right coach for you, then it doesn't matter, right?
Then it
So
doesn't matter. Yeah.
it's not just about recognizing scammers, but it's also just recognizing like who's the right fit for you.
We're so in
So
alignment. We literally just filmed a video about online business scam red flags. And a big part of what we talked about was like, hey, these are manipulation tactics. So I'll make sure, if it's already published, I'll make sure to leave it below. If not, everybody subscribe so you know when that one comes out.
yeah, I've made a lot of content around it because I spent a lot of money that got me nowhere. Because
Yeah.
I didn't know the manipulative tricks that were being played, and I wasn't listening to my intuition. So sales people, I had some really toxic mentors say sales is service, sales isn't sleazy, and I was like, okay, show me a way of selling that isn't sleazy, and I'll believe you. And they're like, oh, you just need to work on your mindset, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to try to lie to myself and say that this isn't sleazy because it's sleazy. So, sales absolutely can be service, but it depends on how you go into the conversation. And this is whether you're selling through a sales page or you're selling in the DMs or you're selling in a sales call, which is my
YouTube
preference.
videos, even. Yeah.
Yeah,
YouTube videos, anything, any form of marketing or communication. Yeah.
absolutely. And so, if your intent is to really help people understand what you do and to help them to figure out if it's the right next move for them, then sales is service.
Yeah.
But if your intent is from the start, I want everybody who reads this or as many people as possible to give me money. And you really don't care if they're a good fit. You really don't care if they're in the right place to get good results with you. You don't really care if their business or their health situation or their relationship situation is something you're really an expert in and you're just after the dollar, that's when sales is sleazy.
Yeah, it's all about the intention and how you're using the skills. It's like the skills are neutral. It's how you're using the skills that determines whether or not it's sleazy.
Well, yeah, and then which tactics you use.
Yeah.
And there, like you were saying, like there's persuasion, there's manipulation, and there's some tactics that kind of can straddle the line, but when you start leaning into that, I'm going to make this person buy, or even like I heard somebody a long time ago rationalize that like it's okay to be pushy with people because you know that they need what you have. And I'm like, gross.
Yeah, it's like there's a difference between pressure and pushy, right? Like sometimes you need to apply pressure. Like I'll give an example, right? Like we had our weekly co-working call in our effortless revenue mastermind, and we had one of our students show up like 20 minutes before I was closing the room. And I said, all right, you got 20 minutes to get your biggest thing done today. She goes, oh my God, I don't know if I can do it. We get to the end of the call and she got it done. All I did was apply pressure so she could get something done. In that case,
Absolutely.
time pressure in order to help her because that's how humans work, right? Like sometimes we just need pressure,
Sure.
unfortunately, in order to get moving and get going in the way that we want to go. That's why in a lot of the people listening right now, one of the things that's going on, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, is somebody who started their own business. They're very, I don't want to say comfortable, but they're very, maybe you can help me find the words. It's almost like the situations they're in, the jobs they're in. Oh, we could talk about toxic jobs in a second, right? But the jobs they're in, the situations that they're in, it's bad, and they know it's bad, but they're accepting it.
Yeah. So I'll give a sex work example. So I had worked with this one agency, escorting agency for years, and the woman that ran it was just a freaking sociopath. Like she was just awful. And I knew she was awful. And she would play mind games and just all this stuff. But in my mind, I was stuck. There wasn't a better agency to work for. I didn't want to go through the hassle of working for myself. And so I put up with it. And I told people when I finally quit, I was like, 6 months from now, I'm going to look back at this and realize exactly how crazy it was. Because, like, while you're in it, there's kind of like a baseline of crazy that you're just used to, and you don't really notice until it goes above the baseline of crazy or abusive or whatever. And, but once you get out of it, you look back, 3 to 6 months, and you're not used to the baseline of crazy, and you can actually see the situation more clearly. And you're like, holy fuck, how did I stand that?
Wait, so are you saying that you went from sex work to running your own business?
Well, sex work, I was a contractor, so technically I was running
Well,
my
yeah,
own
you were a
business.
contractor, so it was kind of like running your own business. But so well, that's a pretty big career transition, right? And a lot of the people in our audience would be going from like a job to like
Right.
doing their own thing because that's the thing that brings freedom. And boy, do we have some news stories that we're going to be talking about on this podcast episode about how creepy things are getting
Yeah.
with remote jobs
And
and regular, yeah.
I didn't go directly from sex work into coaching. I
Okay.
started coaching, and then the idea was to go from one to the other. And then because I kept taking crappy business trainings, I didn't get my business off the ground. So I worked for Uber, I worked for Instacart, I was a concierge, and then I
You
was a
did what you had to do.
chauffeur.
Yeah.
And then so I've had office jobs, I've worked corporate. Ugh.
Yeah. So for people who are listening and they would be making a pretty big transition, right? What would you tell them? Because again, a lot of them are just tolerating situations that they know are pretty bad.
I mean, you and I talked about this, briefly. Anybody can be an entrepreneur. There's some people that are never going to be like it depends on how you view risk. Like
Mm-hmm.
my father, he hated sex work. He was like, I want you to do something that's more stable, that's more, whatever. And I'm like, I can go anywhere in the world and not speak the language and make money. Like, how much more stable do you want? Right. But he kept on me. And so I went to work at this, property management company. And he's like, go work for a good company and you'll be secure. 6 months later, they sold to another company. Within a year, everybody that worked for the initial company I'd gotten on with had quit because the next company was horrible, right? So it's an illusion of security if you're working for other people, but a lot of people really think they need that, but really it's an illusion. Like it
It's
can
an
go away at
illusion.
any time.
Yeah, richness, one of my mentors told me this. Richness actually, it has nothing to do with the amount of money in your bank account. Richness lies in your resourcefulness.
Mm,
Successful people, people who make a lot of money, people who make it in life, they are resourceful AF. And they
yep.
see the illusion for what it is.
And that's it. And once you can kind of see beyond, that illusion, you're like, okay, this really isn't any safer. And I'm having to put up with, so much stuff. Like the corporate job, working in a property management company as a concierge and then a leasing agent. I was more morally compromised doing that job than I ever was as a sex worker. I
How
mean,
so? Oh, I'm interested in this. How so?
well, and it depends on your view of morals. I think
Right.
that offering sex for money, if it's done ethically, is not a problem. But a lot of people would disagree and would be like, "No, it's wrong,"
I can
whatever.
already hear the comments.
To each their own, to each their own. To me, I'm providing a good service. I'm, doing it in a healthy way. I'm, being honest, blah, blah, blah. I was like the ethical escort. But when I worked for the property management company, for instance, I found out that I had breast cancer. And so I was getting ready to quit. I had started like a Whim and limo company. I was going to go be a chauffeur for, well, I was contracting through like one of the biggest limo companies in the world. Found out I had breast cancer, so I could not leave the leasing agent job because I needed health insurance. And about a month before I went out on leave to have like my mastectomy and start all the of cancer treatment, they made me move in someone to an apartment that we knew was infested with German cockroaches. There were other units we could have moved him into, but they made me move him into something and I could not do anything about it because I couldn't quit because I needed health insurance. And it killed me.
Yeah, to get woo woo for a second, we actually have another YouTube channel we're starting, everybody, right? Called Mindful Success Path to talk about a lot of the stuff that you were talking about, like how to actually use our brains in productive ways to make decisions to get to where we want to go. So check out the link below. But one of the things that I like to do on that channel is talk about archetypes. And what you're talking about, it's very interesting how it's the archetype, what you're talking about, and what the story that you just said would be in alignment with the archetype of the prostitute.
Yeah.
That people
Yep.
think prostitution is just, to your point, literally sex work,
Right.
right? But that you can be in above board jobs or situations and still be acting like a prostitute.
That's why I hate that word. And that's why prostitutes, that's why sex worker rights advocates have changed it to sex work, because prostitution, one of the meanings is to lie, to do something that you think is wrong for money. And the archetype, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's an archetype. And a lot of people are at jobs not realizing that they are prostituting their talents.
Prostituting their integrity, their health. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
absolutely.
So very, very interesting. So let's talk about some of the stuff that's been going on in the news lately in terms of toxic jobs that people need to get out of. Because, for example, I mean, it's very easy for us, right? That I ran my own online business for over a decade. Of course, I had ups and downs and almost lost everything. Like, that's just a part of it, right? That's how you get very resourceful and very good at what you do, actually. And then you have obviously had a lot of ups and downs, and you always kind of worked for yourself in a way. So we kind of have that built in confidence already because we already have the evidence. So for those of you who don't have evidence in yourselves yet, I'm going to do something here, which is I'm going to show you just how bad the situation is getting for remote jobs and just corporate culture in most places in the United States, because one of our clients in Effortless Revenue Mastermind actually, number one, quit her toxic job. So kudos to her for quitting a toxic job in insurance, and she's doing her own thing. And now we just helped her craft her offer where she's going to be helping high performers and high achievers be able to use creativity and the right side of their brain so that they can get better results. Because she couldn't
Nice.
do that in insurance. And she's trained in theater by trade. But she had to squash that all down. And then she goes, I could have gotten better results for the company if I was allowed to use this stuff and not squash it down. Anyway, neither here nor there. She just quit her toxic job. And she sent us an article today because she's like, oh, so this company that I used to work for, the CEO, he actually came out with this software, and Justin's going to be doing a reaction video to it that tracks every single little move that remote workers make. They even have a pillow that they have the remote workers sit on that measures the weight of the pillow to determine whether or not the remote worker is working. And she sent this to us, and Justin looked at it and he was like, what the fuck kind of Orwellian shit is this? So stuff like that is becoming more common. Or we heard people, when we did our video about Amazon making everybody go back to the office, we had comments from people saying, we have friends who work for big tech companies. They're tracking their mouse, they're tracking their keystrokes, they're tracking everything. So what are your thoughts on this? As somebody who probably knows a thing or two about control, manipulation, all those kinds of things, what are your thoughts on this? Because we saw that and we're like, that is very Orwellian.
I couldn't come up with a better word. And I'm somebody that like I don't like I don't like overhyped marketing. I don't like overhyped stuff on news or YouTube or anything. But I don't think you're overhyping by saying that. Like that's really disturbing. And the first thing that comes to my mind, like I've worked in an office environment and I've heard studies that say that like people in an 8-hour workday, like at the job, only get about 3 hours of actual work done. And so it's interesting that there could be so controlling about remote workers. You know, it's that it's very troubling to me. It's very, very troubling. But given everything else that's going on in the US, I'm not I'm shocked, but I shouldn't be.
Yeah. Yeah, and the guy was like on it, and we're gonna, like I said, the reaction video is probably out already, but she sent us the video, and we were like, "Oh my god, this is real! Like it's on the news and stuff." And like, I'm like, "How is this legal to
Right.
be?" And they even have cameras on them and everything. I'm like, "How is this legal? I don't understand." But Justin was like, "Well, yeah, because you work for somebody else, so they own your time."
Well, and I think that like
He doesn't agree with it. He's just,
right, right, right.
yeah.
Well, so and I've always been the type of person like when I have worked for other people, like I worked in a sex toy store. I worked in the office in the property management, and then I contracted through a bunch of people. And I've always wanted to be like I'm a really good employee for about 3 to 6 months, and then I start seeing the holes and everything, and the policies, the procedures, and I just can't
And the
take it anymore.
politics and all the bullshit. Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah. So I'm somebody like because I had worked on my own so much, like as a sex worker, I mostly worked by myself. And so I didn't see other people's work ethic. When I started working, and then when you drive for Uber and you do all these other things, you work, on your own. When I got into the office environment, my work ethic was way better than all these people's. And I was like, okay, like I'm way more valuable because I actually want to do a good job. Like if whatever I'm doing, I want to do it well, right? Not everybody has that kind of work ethic. So if somebody's paying me and they're paying me well and they're appreciating me, then I'm going to go above and beyond to be really good to them. The problem is most companies are not good to their employees. They do not appreciate them. They don't pay them enough to actually
Management is
live.
terrible.
Management, oh my God, that's one of the biggest things. Bad management just makes my head explode. So, like, on the one hand, I get why companies are cracking down because so many people have shitty work ethics, for one thing. For another thing, there's been the whole quiet quitting phenomenon,
Yeah.
and I also get why people have done that. And it's like, and I saw my coworkers doing this. They're like, well, we're not being appreciated. We're not really making, enough money. So we're going to dial back our performance to kind of match, how we feel we're being treated and compensated.
Which is just
I
human nature, by the way.
It is, and I can't do it. I tried it, and it made me insane. If I'm not in an environment where I can be my best, do my best, be appreciated, and make, a livable wage, then I can't do it. And
But do
so
you
I
know
have
what
to
it
work for
is? It's
myself.
because you're a high performer and a high achiever. I was just having this
Yeah.
conversation with our client, Megan and Justin and I. Well, Justin wasn't on the call. It was like afterward because he's been on sales calls all day because Entrepreneur Expat has us booked and busy. That's why he's not here. But one of the things that he brought up, and also our client Megan brought up, was he brought up on the Amazon video. He's like, the first people who are going to quit are the high performers
Yes.
and the high achievers and the people who actually get shit done. Those are the
Yeah.
first ones who are going to quit because they actually have the confidence and the self-esteem to be like, fuck you. Like, I'm going to go
Yep.
do something else. Somebody else will give me a job or I'll figure out how to make money on my own. I am resourceful. So that actually doesn't work out for companies because they lose some of their best people when they do stuff like that.
Well, absolutely. And one of the big problems with working for a corporation is that they treat you like you are disposable. And it's so stupid because I've talked to people in HR and they're like, if they would be better to people and keep people on long term, it would actually save them so much
And they
fucking
would
money.
make more money. So
And
we
they
have
would
two, yeah. So we have two clients now in Effortless Revenue Mastermind. One comes from a pharmaceutical background, and the other one comes from more of a like literal mining background. And they both had to manage teams and things like that, and keep retention and make sure people were doing their jobs and all that stuff. And I told both of them, I was like, wait a minute, you guys know how to treat employees and manage them and get them to stick around and get them to do their jobs and like you and like respect you. They're like, yeah. And they both said it individually in their own industries, for example. And I'm like, oh, you're gonna make a killing.
right.
Because most businesses do not know how to do that.
No, it's deplorable. It's just it's stupid, and it's your customers or clients end up getting worse service because so many people, there's so much turnover that people are like constantly in the middle of being trained and they really don't know what they're doing. You end up with a lot more turnover with your employees that otherwise might have stayed because it's annoying to be around people all the time that don't know what they're doing. Like it's a mess, and I don't. It's it blows my mind. I don't understand how they don't see this. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world.
Probably because, as entrepreneurs, we're very much connected to the bottom line in terms of how things are performing. We're constantly looking at analytics, metrics, all that kind of stuff, and we eat what we kill. So, or salespeople, salespeople eat what they kill, typically. I hate the terminology. There's just no other way of saying it. Um,
Not the way that we teach sales, by the way.
Not the way that we teach sales, but I'm
Not
just
the
using
spirit of it.
terminology. I'm just using terminology everybody would understand,
Sure,
right?
sure, sure.
Yeah, it's hunting. You eat what you kill. And the idea, right, is that those kinds of people who are used to eating what they kill and like their bottom line is directly correlated to their performance and whether or not they can get results, I think those are the people who actually know.
True, and I don't think it's that they're not tracking. I think that it's accounting voodoo. So I
Accounting
think there's
voodoo.
yes, I think there because like numbers are manipulatable, statistics are
Yes, you
manipulatable.
can
Like
make
you
them mean
can't
whatever you want. Yeah.
exactly right. And so what I think happens is there's a way because okay, for instance, at the property management company, at one point they were paying contractors to come in and you had to paint every apartment after somebody moved out before you could move somebody in, and they were paying somebody to like come in and like do it for $300 or something like that. Well, the company decided that they were going to have our maintenance guys do it, and I forget the whole numbers are not my thing, and so like I'm like a personality and like social seller. I'm not like a numbers type of seller.
Yeah.
But my
We'll
but
change that when you come work with us because we're gonna get your system squared away. We're totally gonna change that because I used to say the exact same thing as you, right? I'm not a numbers person, I'm not a systems person, and now I read analytics all the live long day and I'm like, I love analytics. They've made
well,
my
and
life so much easier.
I can see it, but if anybody's watching this and they're like, I don't know if I can work with her, like she says she's not a number person, but she says she's a sales coach. My thing is all about like rapid integrity, high integrity relationship building
Yeah,
and
it's
blah 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 blah.
relationship building. It's a different skill.
It's a
Yeah.
different right. It's a different, it's not like, anyway. So I forget exactly how the number voodoo worked, but my boss was like, okay, when you put the numbers like this, it looks like they're saving money by using in-house. But the reality is that it's actually costing us more money. I think it's because the maintenance people were being pulled off other things that they should have been doing. So when you manipulate the data in one way, it looked like the company was saving money, but the reality was not.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same with like, instead of giving people good raises or paying people well, or giving them good training, in the beginning, I think that it looks like you're saving money if you don't do that. But the reality down the road is that it actually costs you a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how they don't think about this stuff because, and I've seen it in businesses, they're not even full blown corporations. We're talking like seven figure coaches and shit like that who don't even understand this. And I'm like, if you understood how this correlates to your bottom line and how you're bleeding out money by not having these things in place, which a lot of the people listening to us, they do work for bigger corporations. I'm sure they see it. They see
Mhm.
it. I mean, our client who was just talking to us, we've helped her figure out her new offer in an hour. The one who just quit her toxic job, she saw it. She saw it. She's like, man, she was even to the point where she had to tell them what to do on her way out so they wouldn't lose two of their highest producers
Yeah.
because they didn't know how to do that. So I
Yeah.
think people in corporate, they see it all the live long day. How all these inefficiencies and all these problems are causing issues for everybody in the organization. The high performers, the ones who get it, the ones who really want to do their best, right? They see it all the time
Oh,
based on
yeah.
the conversations that we're having.
Yeah. Well, it's an example. So when I was going through cancer treatment, the woman that was my lymphedema therapist, she was the top paid person in her department. She was amazing at what she did. But They probably had some consultant come in, and I know all consultants aren't evil, but they had some consulting firm that came in and said, "Hey, you can make more money if you, condense the appointments and do this and this and this." And she was like, "This is ridiculous. Like, people aren't getting the quality of care." She's like, "I don't have time to go pee, during the day because
Oh,
I
healthcare is a very broken system
oh,
in the
so
United
broken."
States. Yeah.
And she's like, "I'm trying to tell them." I was like, "Here's the thing." I was like, "Quit, start your own business," which she did, and come back and charge them a fuck ton of money as a consultant, and they'll listen to you.
Yes, thank you for bringing this up because this is an example that Justin brings up all the time. But a lot of the people that we talk to from the entrepreneur expat community, because they've been conditioned into trading time for money, and they've been conditioned into the rat race, and they've been conditioned into money is scarce, and they've been conditioned into doubting themselves all the time, they don't see this. So please say that again, because Justin's been saying that all the time. You basically told this woman, quit your job, come back as a consultant, they'll pay you a fuck ton more money, and then they'll actually listen to you.
Yeah, and it's insane because if they would actually listen to their employees, they could fix this stuff, but they don't. And they make the decision. They talk about stuff in the vacuum of a boardroom, and it makes sense in the vacuum of the boardroom. But these are people that have either never done the entry level or like mid level jobs, or they haven't done them in so long that they don't recognize that the stuff that they're saying that and it makes so much sense in the boardroom. You get it down to like the actual level of client, engagement and everything. It doesn't make any fucking sense. But they're arrogant, they're cut off from their people, they don't care, and they won't listen. And so it just gets worse and worse. And then they'll pay Accenture or God, anyway, one of the big consulting
McKinsey or
firms
something like that. Yeah.
billions of dollars to come in and fix the problem. They could have fixed it if they had just talked to their employees.
Yeah.
It's so stupid.
Yeah. So, what advice do you have for people who are listening to this and they're like, yes, I'm one of those high performers. Yes, I'm noticing all these problems. Yes, I want to move to Mexico like Amanda and Heather and Justin have all done, and all these people that we're interviewing who live all over the fucking world and on sailboats and stuff like that. I want to do that, but I'm stuck at this job and I can't figure out how to make money online. What would you tell them?
You are in an imaginary corner with invisible paint.
Ooh, where's this going?
You
I was
have
not
painted.
expecting this. Where is this going?
It's something that I've realized about myself, that I will get into fear and old stories, and I will feel utterly and completely trapped. Like, for instance, when I was working for that horrible escort agency. And then once I'm out of it and years later, I'm like, oh my God, I could have done this, this, and this. But in my mind, I had painted myself into a corner and there was nowhere else to go. Only the corner was imaginary and the paint was invisible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because what we're noticing a lot of the times is people get stuck in what's called a psycho-cybernetic loop,
Mm,
which is just basic behavioral psychology. So, guys, take this, we're take this right and use it in every area of your life, because what stops most people is their own limiting beliefs, and what stops most people is their own imaginary fears of what could go wrong or not go wrong. I'm here to tell you, you run a business, things are going to go wrong. You move to another
yep.
country, things are going to go wrong. You
Yeah.
travel, things are going to go wrong. You stay where you are, things are going to go wrong. It doesn't matter.
True.
So the reality is that it's how we respond to things that determines the results that we get in
Yep.
life. And most people are conditioned into responding in ways that are actually self-defeating
Yep.
and keep them stuck. So let me give an example. You'll appreciate this one because I read this one in a book and it was a sales example. And this is actually something we taught our clients on our Target Tuesday call last week. And literally within hours, they were already getting better results from their sales activity. Because one thing that always blew my mind, and now I'm starting to understand it, I'm like, how can I give the exact same training to two people and one person nails it and the other person flounders? Drove me nuts. Well, now I understand. It's what's going on in our brains and what we actually believe. So, what happens to most people is they get stuck in a psycho-cybernetic loop. And basically, and this is life changing for people who are listening, is your emotions are dictated by thoughts.
Hmm.
Those thoughts are dictated by some sort of belief that you
Believe.
have in your system that we probably picked up by the age of 7, and by the way, literally lives in your cells.
Mm.
Yeah, it's one of the first things we learned in our holistic training in Mexico. Everything starts in the nervous system. And
Mm.
all the ancient civilizations knew it. It's just now neuroscience backs it up. but all the ancient civilizations knew that every single problem starts in the nervous system.
Mm.
So what happens, right, is that people get stuck in a loop, right? So the loop sounds like, oh my God, how am I going to make money? Oh my God, how am I going to be able to figure it out? Oh my God, I'm not good enough. Oh my God, other people can be successful, but not me. That's the loop everyone's in their head, and they're stuck in that loop because they don't know how to get out of it. I'm
Yeah.
about to teach you all how to get out of it. So what happens is because they're stuck in that loop, then they don't take the necessary behaviors or actions that would give them the results that they say that they want. So then what happens is they have an internal conflict on the inside, and that's what's
Mhm.
causing all the anxiety.
Yep. 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 Yep.
So what we have to do is and this is what we were teaching our clients, is we have to change the root belief, right?
Hmm.
Which, for example, people listening, and then I'll give you a sales example. The people listening might be thinking, oh my God, there's no way that they're watching this right now, right? And they're like, oh, there's no way I can make money like Amanda and Heather and Justin have done. There's no way. They can be successful, but not me.
Right.
They can do it, but not me, because they're a special snowflake, right? So they can do it, but not me. You're a special little snowflake, right? If you're saying that. So what happens is there's usually an underlying belief there. The belief being, I can't be successful. So then we have to switch the belief to, I can be successful. And then we have to report evidence on all the ways that they've been successful in the past. That's how you actually start to rewire your brain and your beliefs. Because what happens is when you start looking at the evidence of how you have been successful, then you realize that your limiting belief of not being successful is bullshit.
Right.
Then the anxiety reduces, and then you go do the damn thing that you need to do to go get the result that you want. It's basic behavioral psychology, and we started teaching this in all our business trainings, because we were like, how is it possible that some people like just take off and some people don't, and it all comes back to that.
Mm.
That's all it is. So to anybody listening, use that exercise every time you've got anxiety, and no, you can't, just because, Amanda, Heather, and Justin have done it doesn't mean you can't do it.
Now,
It's the
if I,
opposite.
yeah, if I can go through the things that I went through and live through the things that I lived through and have done this, like you can do it. You can, yeah.
So the sales example, because I know it'll give you a chuckle, and then we can land this plane. The sales example is, man, I know that I really need to reach out to these prospects, or I know I need to get this YouTube video out, or I know I need to follow up, or I need to do this, right? And then you start getting that anxiety, right? Like suddenly the phone is 10,000 pounds, right? And you start getting the anxiety, right? And you're like, I'm not good at this. I don't know how to do it right. I don't want to bother people, blah, 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 all of which is bullshit. Blah, 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 blah. There's the anxiety. And then what happens? You start procrastinating. You're like, let me go get let me go to the corner store. Let me go watch this YouTube video. Let me go watch a course on how to put all my tech together. So you just end up distracted in a bunch of rabbit holes that don't actually make any money.
Let me order from Rappi.
Let me order from Rappi, yeah, Rappi or Mercado Libre. Let me go shopping on Mercado Libre. Let me go do that, right? So you end up procrastinating and going down all these rabbit holes that don't actually make any money or get you anywhere that it is that you're trying to go. So what happens in sales, right, is like, wait a minute, I do know what I'm doing. I can be successful. I can make money. Literally, all I have to do is talk to people and become visible and become known. And then you give yourself the evidence of how you've been successful at marketing, or even if you've never done sales before, how you've been successful at persuasion. Like if you've ever persuaded your kids to do something, you're an excellent salesperson.
Oh, that's a
So
great
you start
example.
giving the evidence, and then you realize the original belief is bullshit, and then you change your behavior, and you pick up the phone, and you make money.
And if you've ever persuaded your cat to do anything,
Oh,
you're a
yeah.
master salesperson.
Yeah, if you've ever persuaded a cat to do anything, you're definitely a salesperson.
That might make it into a meme. That's pretty good.
All right, Heather, tell the people where they can find you, because I know you've got some cool stuff going on right now. You have a YouTube channel, actually.
Do you have a YouTube channel? So youtube.com/@HeatherWild. And yeah, go check it out. I've got a bunch of stuff about FTC compliance, which is a big thing happening in the US and affects all online entrepreneurs, whether they're in the US or not.
Just
Have
making it
a lot.
harder to do business, as per usual. I know why.
Well,
There's been scammers too. Yeah.
yeah, it's a double-edged sword for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of like sales stuff on there. And right now, I'm primarily on Facebook, but you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram, and I've got a an evergreen masterclass that you can get. We'll pop a link, hopefully, down below.
Perfect. What final words do you have for somebody who's listening to this and they're like, dang, I really want to do what they're doing, but I don't think I can?
Try it. Do what I did. Get an Airbnb for a couple of weeks and go somewhere. It doesn't have to be Mexico. Go somewhere and try it and see how you like it. No decision is final. Just try it. If you don't like it, you can always go back to your old life. But if you're really unhappy in your current life, um, don't stay because it feels comfortable.
Yeah, I think it also goes back to fear of failure. They're like, what if I fail? And I'm like, well, you have one option where you can actually have a chance to succeed and do something different. And you have another option where you would be a guaranteed failure if you don't do
Exactly.
anything.
Because you don't do anything. Yeah, 100%. Now, if I had told myself I'm going to move to Mexico, I wouldn't have done it. I would have scared the shit out of myself. But I was like, all right, I'll go down here for a couple of weeks. And now I'm like, yeah, I'm not going home, not to stay at least. So,
I actually have one more question for you because, sex and money are related. So, uh, this took a turn. But I have one more question for you because the other thing that everybody fears is just people have very limiting beliefs about money. Like just to
mhm.
begin with, like their worldview of money is extremely limited because they've been conditioned into it. I would venture to say you've seen a worldview of money that most people would not uh, be able to see in their lifetime because not everybody's going to be a sex worker. I'm sure you've met all kinds of people in that kind of work and heard all kinds of things. So, how did that actually change your view about money and get you to a point where you're like, I can't just be resourceful and do this shit on my own?
Well, I mean, I was already pretty resourceful. Like when I started sex work, it was kind of like moving to Mexico. I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
I just kind of like did it. What really changed I mean, I was around wealth and I got exposed to levels of wealth that saw on TV, and saw in movies, but I hadn't experienced. So, I mean, that was definitely, an eye-opening thing. Unfortunately, I had so much trauma at the time that those lessons weren't really able to stick in. Being a concierge at a high-rise apartment building and working as a chauffeur that was the company only I drove CEOs to the airport all day. That's what really changed my perception of wealthy people and what having money looks like.
In what way?
So, I mean, they're regular people. They're regular people, and most of them, like the most successful people, are pretty down to earth. The people that are like quasi successful can be a pain in the ass.
They're the worst.
I mean, there's assholes and idiots no matter how you slice out the human race,
Yeah, but the quasi ones who are trying too hard to prove it, they usually don't really know what they're talking about. But the ones who, because I've had the same experience. I once was sitting next to a guy who made 10 million a month at an event, and he would like renovate apartment buildings, and he was like the nicest, most down to earth guy. He helped me solve a problem like right then and there. He made phone calls for me to solve a problem for me, and I'm like, this dude A doesn't know me from a can of paint, right? And B, he I'm like a flea, right?
Right.
Like, you I don't know
But he was
why that's what came
generous.
out, huh?
He was generous
He was
because he could be.
generous.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I've had that experience like usually with very wealthy people, because a lot of people think that wealthy people are greedy and all this kind of stuff, and once you really start getting around them, you realize nothing could be further from the truth. Some of them are, you know.
Right. Depends on the person, but I mean, I had people like the concierge job when I mean, it's pretty toxic. Um, but when I was talking to the client, the residents that were cool, I had one guy sit down with me for an hour and talk about how he created his boutique style chauffeuring business, and I had another guy who was a chauffeur that got me an interview with his company, right? So and like one of them didn't have to work; he just worked because I don't know.
He
He didn't want
wanted
to sit
to.
at home, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, he had crazy amounts of money. But I mean, he wore sweatpants most of the time, you know? So it really helped me to see. And it also helped me to show me that like I can talk to wealthy people and like, you know, because I have this thing like I can't talk to them because, you
There's no
know, I didn't
difference between
I
you
mean,
and them.
exactly.
Yeah.
But because I was working, I had to talk to them. And I was like, oh, they're just people, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. And so, yeah, yeah,
The only
it's,
differences are the skills that they have and the way that they think about money and life in general.
it,
That's it. That's the only difference.
and the resourcefulness and, you know, and for some of them, you know, I do think that people that are raised by entrepreneurs have a slight advantage over the rest of us. Uh,
Agreed. Because I was not and Justin
neither.
was. And you could see the difference.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you've had something modeled, you know, your whole life, it looks a lot more possible, you know, for you. So if they had, you know, parents or close relatives that were in business, that might have given them, you know, a leg up. But I mean, I don't know. What I find so fascinating is so many of the richest people in the world, some of them didn't finish high school. A lot of them didn't go to college or didn't finish college, you know, because they were just like, you know what, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to make it work.
Yeah. It's a beautiful lesson when you start getting around those people and you start to realize, and I think this is what happens to a lot of the people in the entrepreneur expat communities because they've been at jobs for so long and that's what everybody's conditioned into: go to school,
Mhm.
get a job, retire, blah, blah, blah. And some people are having their brains blown in terms of, yeah, that's not really how the world works.
I mean, it is if you want to be a part of the matrix,
Yeah.
but I do not.
Yeah.
I can't. I can't go crazy.
Yeah, same here. We're like, we just can't be a part of the matrix. Like, we can't do it. And then they just keep getting more and more and more screwed with all the news stories that we see. And we're like, guys, wake up. If you didn't get it in 2008, you better get it now.
Yeah, it's it, I don't know. It's so backwards. Like I look at the stuff going on in the US and it literally looks like they're trying to fuck shit up worse.
They are. Yeah, that's literally what it looks like.
I'm like, are you trying to make shit explode? Like, is that really like I don't understand and I can't understand and I'm never gonna know the whole story and so fuck it, I'm out.
Yeah, but I think there's a percentage of people, and if you've made it this far in the podcast, you are in that percentage. There's a percentage of people who know what's going on. There's a percentage of people who are high performers. There's a percentage of people who know very well what is happening and that they need to start taking, their own income and their own finances into their own hands because none of these companies care about you and neither does the government.
They really, really don't. And if they can replace you with AI, they
They
will.
absolutely will.
That's a whole other conversation. But I think, you know, for anybody who sees the writing on the wall, you know, in the US, in Canada, wherever, like get the fuck out, learn another language fast. And you know, figure out how you can make money, you know, figure out how you can make money. And sales and marketing is going to be a part of it no matter what you do. And it doesn't have to be sleazy, it doesn't have to be gross. You can find ways of doing it that feel good, that actually work better for you than the way a lot of people teach stuff, so you don't have to be scared of it.
100%. All right, Heather, thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom with us. Congratulations on how many months are we going on you in Mexico?
4 months.
4 months. Congratulations on 4 months in Mexico. Are you going through the emotional purge? That's what I went through.
I was playing guitar the other day and I played like Country Roads by John Denver and I just started crying.
Yeah.
Because there's things that I do miss, but I can't with it anymore.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I'm pretty sure that I went through a process of de-stressing my nervous system.
I do think just not like I don't watch the news. I didn't watch the news. I haven't watched the news in years, but just the general environment of anxiety and conflict was there. And then people would talk about it to me. So I wasn't searching it out. I wasn't watching it, but I would still hear about stuff and I would just be like, oh my God. So yeah, it's definitely more chilling. Mexico isn't perfect. It's got its own problems. Nowhere is perfect, but
No such thing
their
as a perfect country.
their bullshit doesn't bother me as much. because it's
Yeah.
not my country. Even though I like it, I like the people here. I don't think that stuff will bother me. And if it gets fucked up, I'll go somewhere else.
Because you have an online business that allows you to do that. Say it again, because people in the comments are like, well, Mexico's not perfect. I'm like, A, no one ever said it was, right? And B, if shit gets fucked up here, we're going to Argentina. Like, we can just pack up our stuff and go somewhere else because we can make money from anywhere in the world. That's the whole point.
Exactly. That like citizen of the world just makes
So
a
much
lot more
sense,
sense.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you feel like you don't get really attached to any country.
Yeah, I mean, you can appreciate and you can enjoy and you can, I think living somewhere is better than just traveling there.
Yep.
But like, eh, yeah, I want multiple passports so that if I'm trying to get to a country that's pissed off at the country that I'm in, I've got another passport I can use to get across that border.
And the fact that you make money online from anywhere in the world allows you to do that a lot more easily. And if some consulate's like, hey, we need you to make more money, you're like, great, I'll just sell a few extra shit. Like, no big deal.
Exactly, exactly. I think just being independent, I shared with you, like I really want to live off grid. I really want to, you know, be in a place where I'm pretty self-sufficient, and having my own business is a big part of that.
100%, right? Because a lot of people in the comments, they want to be self sufficient, they want to be independent, they want to be independent thinkers. Can't really do that when somebody else is controlling how much money you're making, where you're spending your time, and if they're making you sit on a pillow to make sure that you are working remotely.
And or they're forcing you to treat people in ways that don't feel good to you, that aren't aligned for you. They're forcing you to interact with your coworkers in toxic ways. They're forcing you to, interact with the clients in a toxic way. Like that just kills my soul.
Me too. And I think that's a good place to put a pin in it. So, everybody, make sure to check out all the links below. Heather is an excellent sales trainer from one sales trainer to another. And by the way, thank you so much for coming on here because I know you have a pretty good bullshit detector and that you've done a lot of work in terms of finding out who's manipulating and who's full of shit and who's not. So, thank you so much for being here because I'm like honored that Heather doesn't think I'm full of shit. Like,
No, no, no. You've been incredibly helpful in the comments, and I even told you at one point. I was like, you can like if it gets to a point where these free questions are too much, just let me know. Everything I know, I haven't worked with Amanda yet, but everything I know about her seems to be very ethical. She's not tried to high pressure sales me. Some people will get you on a friendly coffee chat and then like try to sell
flip
you
it on you.
something like,
Flip. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
so gross. So yeah, but thank you for having me on. I'm really enjoying the content. I feel like you guys are really presenting the reality and like the problems without being overhyped, without scaring people. I really appreciate the content that you're creating.
I appreciate that. We're really trying. It's not always easy because what
It's
we've
not.
noticed is like you could be extremely factual and try and be as middle of the way as possible and even present both sides, but because people are stuck in psycho cybernetic loops, they'll still send you to hell because they heard whatever they wanted to hear and perception is reality.
Yeah, well, everybody is like running on cortisol and adrenaline and high emotion and this is one thing. One of the reasons why it's very frustrating for me to talk to people that say they're like left or right is often they have more moderate tendencies, but they will not say that around their friends. So all of their friend group is pretending that they're all like 100% liberal or 100% conservative, and it's not the case.
No one's like that.
But they're afraid of getting kicked out,
Yeah.
and so everybody is talking this party line that they don't really believe. It's really just gross. I
Ooh,
can't.
girl, we're gonna have you come back for a part two after this election, after we see what insanity goes down, regardless of what happens. So, because I get the feeling we're gonna be having another conversation again after November, because I'm like, it's gonna be mayhem either way.
I hope not,
It's
that's
it's
what
looking like
I
that
feel.
though. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, we really try. So thank you. I appreciate that. We really try and just kind of lay out what's going on, and if we have an opinion, then we'll be like, look, this is where we tend to lean, but we
Right.
try and kind of like, and it's funny because people will make all kinds of assumptions like, oh, you guys are Trump supporters. I'm like, I literally said I didn't vote for the guy
Right.
in the video, right? or, or like, oh, well, if you guys are moderate, that must mean you're the liberals ruining our country. And I'm like, actually, we probably lean more conservative than that, but but they make all kinds of assumptions. It's crazy.
It's so out of control. And like I said, like just people have abandoned rational thinking, they've abandoned discernment, and they just want to argue and fight. And I have better things to do with my time.
And you've decided to opt out because you are a sovereign being who makes your own money, can go anywhere in the world, and doesn't have to participate.
Yes, thank God. Well, and thank me.
All right, thank you so much, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Bye.
Okay. Stopping. It says it's stopping.